All right, welcome to the RBR Recap. This is the inaugural session. I'm Alejandro Burgos, editor-in-chief of RBRBoxing. I'm joined by Gabe, Rivas, publicist, interpreter, your favorite interpreter, and someone that we missed last night. Gabe, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you, man?
I'm excellent, man. Excited to get this year kicked off. I'll break down for the fans listening exactly what we're going to be doing on this podcast. It's not your normal 30, 45-minute type of thing. We're going to do some quick hits, and hopefully you join us for your Monday morning coffee, and we'll get it started with some discussion. So our schedule is going to be somewhat like this: a quick recap of the fights that happened, the biggest overreaction, because there's always going to be a little bit of that depending on what happened in a fight. The biggest not overreaction, and you'll see what we mean in a bit. And then we'll look at the schedule and maybe talk about what's next based off these results. And we'll take a look at what's coming up down the line in boxing. So we're excited to get started. We hope you engage and discuss with us and let us know what we're doing well, what you like and what you don't like. On Saturday, January 22nd, unbeaten Mark Magsayo defeated longtime reigning champion Gary Russell Jr. by majority decision. He took the WBC Featherweight World Championship from Russell, who was the longest current reigning champion in boxing. That was in your main event. It was a majority decision, had some interesting ins and outs, which we'll discuss. And in the co-main event, we had Subriel Matias facing Petros Ananyan in a rematch. Matias got his revenge, his get back, and he actually scored a 9th round TKO over Ananyan. And in a telecast opener, Tugstsogt Nyambayar and Sakaria Lukas fought to a spirited split decision draw. Fight could have gone either way, but there was some controversy as well, which we'll discuss in a bit. Jumping right into our biggest overreaction of the night, and I'm going to go with Gary Russell Jr.'s fight against Mark Magsayo. Obviously, an upset from betting lines to what most people, thought was going to happen. Now, I'm going to go with the biggest overreaction being something that kind of Devin Haney spurred with his comment after the fight, which was a tweet that he put out shortly after. Mr. Cap, aka Gary Russell, lost to a bum, with the crying face emoji. Now, we posted that on Instagram, and obviously some people took to kind of jumping on that bandwagon, saying, one Instagram comment was, Gary is a Class B fighter enduring 2,500 days, a title that does not belong to him. Now, this is, in my opinion, the biggest overreaction. And we saw a lot of these types of comments sprinkled throughout Twitter and through Instagram. Gary Russell Jr., in my opinion, fought a tremendous fight with one arm. And so it's a huge overreaction just to say, because he fought, so few times, for everyone to now be like, well, he's, not really that good of a fighter, or we always knew he was going to lose. He should get more credit. And I mean, you saw guys like Andre Ward and some other people that really went out there and said, Gary Russell did a tremendous job in the fight, given the fact that he was injured. And so I don't really see it as an excuse. After the 6th round, he didn't even throw a jab. And so still on the scorecards, you saw he won the 12th, I think 8 and 9 on a couple cards, official cards. He won those rounds as well. So he was impressive, still a ring general, even without his most powerful weapon, which has historically and statistically been the jab for him. So I think that is the biggest overreaction. We knew Gary Russell was going to lose, or we knew that, he was all cap. Gabe, let's kick it to you with the biggest non-overreaction of the night.
What wasn't an overreaction took place in the first televised fight, which is between Tugstsogt Nyambayar and Sakaria Lukas. As we remember, it ended in a split decision draw, but that was only because in round 8, Nyambayar suffered a knockdown that was ruled a slip. The overwhelming opinion by boxing fans and the media on Twitter, as well as the public in the audience where the fight took place, was that it was definitely a knockdown and it should have been ruled as such. And that would have given Sakaria Lukas the most important victory of his career. And so an additional, not an overreaction, was that we probably need to implement clearer guidelines with regard to instant replay, not only in New Jersey, but across all commissions throughout the country.
Gabe, now let's kick it to you for some reaction on the main event. What's next for Mark Magsayo after his title victory?
Mark Magsayo's victory over Gary Russell Jr. was very important for the featherweight division. It frees up a belt, the WBC title, that typically had only been put up for contention once per year. It hadn't been put up for contention for almost 2 years on this occasion. And Magsayo demonstrated a lot of skills. He demonstrated that he was confident, that he pushed the action. He set a lot of traps and created counter-punching opportunities. And for me, the highlight of the fight was the way in which he would receive a straight left hand from Gary Russell Jr., whether or not it landed, and would immediately counter with the uppercut to the body. And we saw him do that many times throughout the fight. So he's very much he's a very skilled fighter, and there are a lot of potential fights that could happen. I mean, we all know that there are a lot of political divisions in the sport of boxing, but there's guys like Manuel Navarrete, Kiko Martinez, Lee Wood. So there are a lot of champions and contenders that Mark Magsayo could potentially face, because what we need more in the sport of boxing are unification fights.
Most definitely. So that'll be something to look forward to, and seeing what happens next for Magsayo. We'll be back next week with 2 fights, giving some post-fight reactions on Ilongo Makabu versus Tabiso Makanu. Obviously, Makabu was one of the fighters that was mentioned as a potential opponent for Canelo in the near future. That still could be the case if he wins this fight, so we'll have to see that. And then also a top-ranked ESPN fight between Robson Conceição versus Xavier Martinez. So that should be a good one. So yeah, we appreciate you joining us. For Gabe, Rivas, and everyone at Round by Round Boxing, I'm Alejandro Burgos, and this is the RBR Recap.